Hi everyone, I'm Pumpkin, and I'm really excited to talk to you today about animal superpowers, or what scientists call adaptations. I'm really excited to talk to you about this subject because I love nature, I love plants, I love animals, and I used to teach kids about nature in outdoor education. And now for my job, I help protect land so that we have places to go hiking, so animals have safe places to live. And I think that that's a really important thing that we can all do, is spend time outdoors and make sure that we're thinking about how to make the world a better place. So we're going to talk about all those things today. We're going to start off with a little story. We're going to do a couple activities to figure out what an animal that you really like, what their superpower is. Then we're going to connect that back about what we can do about it. So for this activity, it's nice if you have something to write on, and maybe a pen or some colors if you like to do that. But if you don't have those items at home, it's totally fine. You can just participate along in your mind. To tell you a little bit about myself, I began working with Camp Kesem in 2010 at the University of Michigan. I was a counselor and a coordinator for 4 years. Then I was an advisor for Camp Kesem Central PA. Then I was an ambassador in San Francisco for alumni. That was really fun. And now I'm on the alumni board. And I'm coming to you from a little town called La Honda. That's in California. It's about an hour south of San Francisco. It's in a little redwood town near the beach. Redwoods are the tallest trees in the world. So if you've ever seen those, that's kind of like the area that I live in. It's a pretty cool place. So to start off, I want to tell you a little story. So I grew up in Michigan, and in Michigan they have really cold winters. I don't know if you've ever experienced a really cold winter, but it was the kind of day that was so cold that your nose just freezes right when you're walking outside. And I was taking a little walk out in the woods, and I was all bundled up, and it was really cold wind coming by. And as I'm walking by some trees, I hear this sound. And I'm like, what is that? It's a chipmunk or a squirrel? And I look over and I see some squirrels in a little den, and they're all huddled together. And I'm like, wow, how are these squirrels staying warm enough? It's so cold outside. I'm freezing and I have this big coat on. How are they staying warm enough? And I was really curious. So I went home and I did some research, and I found out that squirrels do a few things to help them keep warm. So the first thing is that squirrels naturally have a lot of fur. They have those really furry tails, and they're pretty bushy. I don't know if you've ever seen a squirrel, but they're usually kind of fat looking and kind of chubby. A lot of that is just their fur. And also in the winter, they eat lots of extra food, and they store up extra fat on their body, and that helps them stay warm. Then they also seek out really nice places for them to make a nest or a den, and that's typically going to be blocked off from a lot of the air or the wind. And then they all huddle together with their warmth, and they kind of move around. And that keeps that little secure den really warm. And they can survive all through the winter, and their den can be up to 70 degrees, which is really warm. That's about as warm as it is here where I am today. So I thought that was so neat. And it turns out that some of those features that squirrels have, like that thick fur, that's called an adaptation. That is something that a squirrel or an animal has that helps them survive in their little home. So today that's what we're going to figure out. What kind of adaptations or superpowers do animals that you like have that help them survive? So first, we're going to find out an animal to think about. So for this animal that you choose, this should be an animal that you know something about. Like maybe you know what they look like, where they live in nature, and what kind of things that they typically eat. And it's useful to think about these animals in terms of living out in the wild. You could also think about a pet, but if you know it, let's say you have a pet cat, maybe you could think about a bobcat, a type of cat that lives out in the woods, out in the wild, or where your cat came from. So take a moment, think about what kind of animal you want to think about, and if you have a couple, that's okay too. So first question is, where would this animal normally live? Does it live in a desert, in a forest, near water? Does it live in a tree? In a field? Where do you think this animal typically lives out in nature? And if you don't know, that's okay. You can take your best guess. A lot of parts about science are about guessing and trying things out and figuring out if you're right or not. So it's okay if you're taking a guess. The second question is, how does your animal travel? Does it fly, swim, walk, run? How does it get around? Then, what does your animal eat? Does it typically eat other plants, like a coyote might eat a rabbit? Or does it eat mostly plants, like a deer typically eats plants? Maybe it eats both. And the last question is, when do you normally see this animal? Do you normally see it out and about during the day or at night? Okay, so once you have some of those questions in your mind, we're going to go through them together, and I'm going to use an example of a duck, and I'm going to kind of draw out my answers to these questions on this scrap piece of paper. So this is a good time if you have a piece of paper and something to write on to get that out. So let's go through those questions again. The first question is, where would I normally see this animal? I'm going to think about a duck, and I oftentimes see ducks near a pond that's up near my house. So I'm going to draw a picture of a little pond. Just a squiggly pond. All right. Next question is, how does this animal get around? Well, I have seen ducks fly. I've seen them swim. I've also seen them waddle. I don't know if waddle is a scientific term, but it's definitely how I would describe it moving. So I'm going to draw a couple ducks. One I'm going to draw swimming. And then I'm going to draw another duck flying. And I realize my marker could be darker. The marker could be darker. So, sorry if you can't see it super well, but there's my two ducks. Let's see. The next question is, what do ducks eat? I've seen ducks dive down to eat fish. I think I've seen ducks nibbling in plants. I know that there's 28 different kinds of ducks in North America, so I'm sure that these different types or these different species of ducks, they might eat different things. But a typical duck, like a mallard, is a type of duck that you might see a lot. Some of the mallards are green, have green heads. I think I've seen them eat fish, so I'm going to draw some little fish in my pond. And I know my fish, they currently look a lot like the head of my duck, and that's okay. This does not have to be a really stellar drawing, but if you are interested in bird drawing, I do like to draw birds when I take more time, and that could be an activity that you try to do too. But you can start off with really simple figures like this. Anyway, okay, last question. When do I normally see ducks? I typically see ducks during the day. Maybe they're active at night and I'm just asleep during that time, but typically I see them during the day. I've definitely seen them taking little naps with their bills are under their wings, so maybe they kind of sleep during the day too. But because I think I've seen them active during the day, I'm going to draw a big sun, and that kind of tells me that it's sunny outside, so it's day. So this is my really simple drawing of those four things, and these four things represent my animal's habitat, and a habitat is a home. So as my marker, if you can read that, it's kind of fading, but a habitat is a home, and those things they have all the components that an animal needs to survive. So now that we know the habitat, we can really figure out what specific superpowers your animal has that helps it survive in that habitat. So we can use those same questions to find out what those adaptations or superpowers are. So the first question is, where do you think it lives? And once we know where it lives, what does it have on it that helps it live there? So does your animal have like a certain kind of skin or fur or scales? So this duck, it has feathers, and those feathers help it fly. It also helps it swim. And I think that that's part of an adaptation. Another example is an emperor penguin. They live in Antarctica. I couldn't just go live in Antarctica, especially not dressed like this. But an emperor penguin can, because it has really, really thick blubber that keeps it warm, and also its feathers are really tightly packed, and that helps it kind of keep waterproof, like it's wearing a rain jacket. So those are things that help it survive in its home. The second thing is, how does your animal travel? So does your animal have special body parts that help it travel? So if your animal flies, like my duck, those wings are special adaptations that help it fly. Or its feet help it waddle, or the webbed feet help it push the water when it's swimming. So what about your animal? Maybe it has long legs like an insect does for jumping. Maybe it has big claws. Maybe it has big paws that help it run and grab the ground. How does it travel? The next question is about the food, and this is my favorite thing, to figure out how the animals adapt, how their body parts have adapted to what they eat. So if your animal eats meat, it's probably going to have different features than it would if it was mostly eating plants. So I like to think about animals' eyes to start. So let's think about a rabbit. Rabbits, they typically eat plants, but they are often eaten by other animals. So not only do they need to be able to look for food, but they also need to make sure that they don't become food. So a way that animals that are herbivores, that eat plants, they often have eyes on the sides of their heads. So if you think about a rabbit, their eyes are kind of on the sides of their heads. That's so they can see side to side really well, and they can watch out if any predator is coming. Now that's different than something like a coyote that hunts. They have eyes on the front of their head. That helps them see straight ahead and hunt. So we can do a little practice thing to find out what it's like to have eyes like that. So you're going to take your two hands and put the backs of them together and hold it up to your nose. And this is what a rabbit's view is kind of like. They can see really well on the sides of them. So maybe right now you can see on the sides of your head, but you can't really see as well forward. So this is kind of what it looks like if you were a rabbit. If you were a hunting animal, your eyes would be more like this, where you can't really see on the sides of you as well, but you can see really well straight ahead. So rabbit, coyote, or prey, predator is often how it is for animals. So the eyes might be able to help you figure out what the animal eats. Also, animals' teeth can really tell you a lot. Do they have really sharp teeth, like their canines, that help them rip through meat? Or are they more flat kind of teeth that help them rip things? Maybe they don't have teeth at all. All right. The last question is, when do you see your animal active? During the day, at night? Maybe it comes out when the sun is coming up or down. That's called crepuscular. So ducks, maybe they come out during the day. What are some animals that come out at night? I think of a raccoon or a cat. They're often active at night, and they have some really special superpowers that help them see at night. Have you ever noticed, if you've seen a cat at night, their eyes are kind of glowing? And I'm sorry for this beeping. Their eyes glow at night, and they have something called a tapetum lucidum. I just learned this word. It's a light reflecting surface in their eyes that help take that light and have them, basically give them night vision. So that helps them hunt at night or do whatever they're doing at night. So maybe your animal has some really cool feature that helps them either camouflage during the day or see or use sound at night. that's a really cool adaptation or superpower too. So we just learned that your animal doesn't just have one superpower, it has many superpowers or adaptations that help it survive. So to remember that, I'm going to draw a cape on my duck to help me remind myself that they're really cool and they have superpowers. But not all heroes wear capes, so if you don't want to draw a cape, totally fine too. Here's my super duck. Okay. So it's really important to remember that humans have a really big responsibility to help keep the world a healthy and safe place for these animals to live. And I really like learning about animal superpowers because it helps me appreciate all the cool things that they have that help them survive. And that if we change the surroundings, then it makes them really, it's a big challenge for them to survive in their habitats. So we actually have to help them do that. And we actually have superpowers too that help us do that. So if your animal is used to living in a certain kind of environment, like a tree, and then we get rid of that tree, then they have to find a new tree and they have to move their whole family there. But what if that tree is already crowded? So that's the kind of thing that I'm thinking about. So ways that we can help animals keep in their habitat safely is there's lots of ways that we can do that. So we can buy less stuff, we can plant a garden, we can eat food that's grown closer to our homes, and try to eat more plants and less meat. And we can also use our voices to talk to the people in power and tell them we really care about animals and the land and we want to protect it. And that's what I like to do as an adult. So thinking about animal superpowers and human superpowers, some other superpowers that we have that you might not know we have thumbs. These cool thumbs help us do things like open water bottles and do all sorts of stuff. We have long legs that help us get around. We also have superpowers that are more internal, that are really specialized for humans. So maybe you have a superpower where you're a really, really great listener. Maybe you apologize first if you've said something you didn't really mean. Maybe every day you take a moment to do something nice for someone else in your life. Or maybe you're really courageous and you speak out about ways that you think that we can improve to make this world a better place. So you have the ability to use those superpowers to change the world and to make the world a better place. And Camp Kesem has got your back, and we want to support you in doing that and shining on to make sure that the world can be a really special place for everyone and animals. So I'm really, really excited that you joined me for this activity today. Make sure that you check out all the cool things that Kesem is doing this week from Kesem at Home, and make sure to tag Camp Kesem on this post or any time that you share this post so that lots of people can see it and keep exploring animals and helping the earth and helping each other just be happy and take care of this planet. Thank you.